Yeah, we're live.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. This is 218 sessions that we get together, me and Blue Hair and Woman here for you to present our investigations, our Owl Council House investigations. Very different subjects that we cover here. You can go check out all 208, 17 other versions of our investigations. For this session, we're doing toxicity in the soil. It might seem like something you don't want to take a look at. I mean, when I think about that, I get that message. I mean, if somebody's telling me, "Oh, we're gonna have a show about toxicity on the soil," first reaction I would have is, "Oh, I don't. I mean, okay, it's there. I know it's there. I don't want to. I don't want to know about it. I don't." But that's not the smart thing to do. The smart thing to do about anything that's apparently negative is to know about it, and then you can, well, if you know about it, you're going to know how to defend yourself from it, how to avoid that toxicity coming onto your soil, or what things you can do about it. And that's probably this what you will share here for us will probably help with that. So that's why it's important to have these conversations and to expose all of this information. So welcome all of you that are freedom warriors to this 218th session of I Need Living Conversations.
Yeah. So a better title would have been The Two False Premises of Modern Agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that.
Mhm.
The ancient Greeks knew that plants rely on soil nutrients. However, they didn't know how chemicals of the air contribute to plant bulk and food production.
Mhm.
A 17th century Flemish physician conducted an experiment. He wanted to know how much soil matter would be displaced with plant life. So he planted a willow tree in a big tub. The sprig he planted weighed only about 5 pounds, and he weighed the dirt he put in the tub. It was 200 pounds. And then he covered the tub, except for the tree stem and a hole for watering it. 5 years later, the tree weighed 164 pounds, so he figured that it would have displaced all that dirt, and the dirt should only weigh 41 pounds. Well, nope. The soil lost only 2 ounces after 5 years of tree production.
Okay.
He then figured it was the water. But another scientist said not so, and he looked at plants with the newly developed microscope, and he found pores that were for the admission of air. So the first man completely overlooked air. And as scientists experimented with air, they discovered that a mouse consumes a gallon of oxygen a minute, a cow 25 gallons, and we people use oxygen with reckless abandon. So they figured something was renewing the air. And then in August 17 of 1771, the miracle of plants inhaling carbon dioxide and giving off oxygen was discovered. Another scientist then brought light into the equations and found he literally brought light into the equations because he found that plants kept in the dark won't purify the air. So finally, the process of photosynthesis was discovered. And now we finally arrive at Dmitry Mendeleev, a Russian chemist who first constructed a table of the elements, what we now know as the periodic table. His insight into nature's order was so expansive, it prompted him to supply spaces where he believed elements would be found. So we have the Mendeleev periodic table of the elements that has helped others understand the structure of the atom, DNA, the genome, and more.
Mm-hmm.
The table of elements starts with hydrogen as it's the lightest. The big H is the elemental or chemical symbol. The bottom 1 is the atomic number. The small 1 on the right side of the vertical bar is the number of electrons in each shell. And the number above the H is the atomic weight of hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, soil scientists all of a sudden knew about NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, before the 1940s. And they knew a lot more by the 1950s when oil company technology conquered all. At the end of World War II, the center of gravity for the world oil industry was the Gulf of Mexico. 7 corporations gained a stranglehold on the distribution of oil, and they were capable now of waging wars. Ha! Do we now know where our wars come from?
Yeah.
The farmers didn't understand what went on after World War II. They had been talked into believing that there was a communist under every rock and there would be a post-war depression. What they overlooked was the fact that international business was doing just what was feared of the Russians. Go figure. We made everybody so scared of the Russians so we could do exactly what we thought the Russians would do, but in a different way. So the commies under every rock is what took agriculture the fossil fuel route.
Mm-hmm.
The cartel managers of the oil cartel managers started buying up education, and the grants and bribes were so subtle that even the recipients didn't understand how money influenced the findings of science and the criticism of it. So obstinate professors to this were drummed out of the universities. In order to synthesize honesty, the common denominator of the academic community became simplify. Nothing could be more simple than a fertilizer called NPK, nitrogen, potassium, or phosphorus and potassium.
Okay. Yeah,
and nothing
NPK
could be more easily
right?
sold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing could be more easily sold than university-blessed fossil fuel technology, as long as farmers believed in the professors. However, the simplicity required by the NPK sales manual didn't change biology. Biology needs far more than nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Yeah.
Plants still required and still do require carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, which are available as carbon dioxide and water from both the air and the soil. They still required, and they required at that point, and they still do require the positively charged elements of calcium, magnesium, potassium, manganese, iron, zinc, copper, boron, and more, all available only from the soil, not from hydroponic tanks.
Mm.
Even through all this, plants still require the negatively charged elements of nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, chloride, and so on. So college people taking 2 negatives and 1 positive by the nape of the neck and seat of the pants to create the catchphrase of NPK fertilizer did not change biology. It just made it sound simple.
Mm-hmm.
How plants are nourished and how they grow is not a complete story even now. In all the catchphrase world of NPK, the term living soil was swept away. Plants are not mobile and they do not have a stomach. So the soil has to provide the anchor and the digestive apparatus for the crop and the nutrition. Mm-hmm. The first order then of business for the soil is to hold nutrients that can be traded off at the plant as the plant roots demand them. So the soil laboratory measures the holding energy in the clay and the humus, and almost all labs report this energy as cation exchange capacity, or CEC. Mm-hmm. And they do it in terms of milliequivalents, or a big ME. So a milliequivalent is the exchange capacity of 100 grams of oven-dry soil with 1/1000th of a gram of hydrogen. And each element that's part of the soil has a weight on the periodic table. So the atomic weight would contribute to that. Fossil fuel fertilizer folks knew this all even before NPK fertilizers were turned into foo-foo dust, good for what ails a soil system regardless of anything. However, eco-farmers have long recognized that what you do to a soil system depends on the conditions of the soil system in the first place. Among eco-farmers, the Albrecht formula is gaining strength. Professor Albrecht said that fertilizers are soluble and it's foolish that they should be made insoluble and available. So those are water soluble. They dissolve in water. They should be made, he said they should be made so they can't dissolve in water, but available to the plant.
Mm-hmm.
So most of our botany is solution botany. When we farm a solution botany, the first rain takes out all the nutrients because they're soluble in water.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between the lab and the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Albrecht found that the soils had to have 65% calcium, only 15% magnesium, and the potassium should be in the 2 to 4% range. He figured that these percentages were when nature operates at her finest balance to produce healthy crops. And one of his great friends had a dairy farm in Ohio. The dairy cows told the owner, Albrecht's friend, about vanished nutrition when they started eating the plaster off the walls of their stalls. The calves were having lots of diarrhea, and when they ate the plaster, it stopped. Albrecht's friend consulted with him, and Albrecht determined that the calves were after the calcium carbonate and magnesium carbonate in the plaster. These nutrients had been mined out of the soil of the dairy operation and never replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Albrecht said, "We are not mineral eaters, neither are the animals. If any of them take to the mineral box, wouldn't that be an act of desperation?" That health problem started with the soil had long been an Albrecht contention. He could grow healthy rows of food and infected rows, and depending on how he altered the soil fertility. And he told the Senate committee in 1954, "I doubt the wisdom of mandatory regulation on the national level for any soil treatments with applied minerals or materials." The farm community was then testing for soil acidity, and Albrecht told the senators that pH matters not when the nutrient balance is correct. The pH of soil, which would be the acidity-alkalinity balance, is affected and influenced by 4 elements: calcium, magnesium, potash or potassium, and sodium. A balanced equilibrium of calcium and magnesium creates a soil environment for bacteria and fungus activity, accounting for proper decay of organic matter into carbon dioxide and many other things necessary for the release of mineral elements into the soil. An imbalance of calcium and magnesium permits organic residues to decay into alcohol, which is a sterilant to bacteria, and they also decay into formaldehyde, a preservative of cell tissue. So if you have an imbalance of calcium and magnesium, you're sterilizing everything and preserving everything. Interesting. So the symptoms of improper decay systems can be observed when last year's stalks are plowed back up just as shiny and fresh as when they were turned down. And I've seen that happen on my farm. I now know that we have an imbalance. So large applications then of nitrogen consume larger amounts of calcium. So this is what NPK does. It makes your calcium magnesium balance even worse because it chews up all the calcium. And NPK also burns up crop residues and humus.
Oh, wow.
Natural nitrogen fixation by bacteria on the roots of nitrogen fixers avoid this burnout. And there's lots of nitrogen fixers. Beans, for one. That's why they plant beans. That's part of the Three Sisters, because the roots of beans fix nitrogen into the soil.
Yes.
So without an active organic matter system in the soil, it's not possible to grow crops successfully, no matter how much NPK is used. The soil is a living complex system that not only holds necessary minerals needed for plant life, it's also a factory that produces carbon dioxide and digests lignin into humus, provides nutrition and energy for desirable bacteria and soil animal life, and it's the container for both air and water. Professor Albrecht was not able to convince the agricultural machine that eco-farming was the highest science, and so he was forced into retirement. Money had come between the scientist's findings and the criticism of it, and the tornado of the agricultural machine gobbled everything inside and made NPK the holy insight and made NPK the holy writ. Blessed by the scientific priesthood, it was swallowed hook, line, and sinker by farmers to the delight of the petrochemical cartel. Oil company technology is, after all, an insurance policy for the use of oil company rescue chemistry. That's one of the false premises, is rescue chemistry. Grants created suitable findings, and these two unsound concepts or false premises swept farming: partial and imbalanced fertilization and toxic residue chemistry. Those are the two false premises of modern agriculture, and still are. The end result of this is food with compromised nutritional quality made toxic by poisons. And this is what now enters our body and is supposed to nourish our cells and our genes. One of the lesser avocations in academia is the study of Arthurian legends. One legend tells us of King Arthur's long perilous trip to Nigeria, the only place on planet Earth that at the time grew the Calabar bean. I'm thinking the Calabar bean is the same as the castor bean. As a young knight, Arthur harvested that bean and returned to England. So we have the Calabar bean marching into history, first because legend says it stopped the Black Death, and second because it made Arthur king. That bean is of special importance as we now investigate the deadly potential of chemicals of organic synthesis. Arthur allegedly said about this bean, "Tomorrow I'll be cured by it or I'll be dead by it." He didn't know it, but he had stumbled onto the first of the organophosphates, physostigmine. A few years ago, Israeli scientists revealed a chemical ingested by Allied soldiers and airmen during the Gulf War that authored the unhappy consequences for these test animal soldiers. The preparation had been dispensed as a tablet and order taken each day under penalty of court-martial was synthesized physostigmine. The synthetic version has been named pyridostigmine.
Okay.
So Gulf War syndrome was deliberately caused
By chemicals.
by the Calabar bean and the synthesis of physostigmine, which turned into pyridostigmine.
Okay.
This Israeli research is blockbuster stuff, not only because it identified the cause of metabolic mischief, it also identified the chain of events that has led to the debauchery of food and farming, the annihilation of the health profile, and the probable incubation of the modern Black Death about to overtake humanity. The poisons that guide high science from the Calabar bean are tabun, soma, sarin, and E-serine. This is why I'm saying it's probably the same as the castor bean, because ricin comes from castor. Okay.
I did a little research because she asked me to find images, and I find that the results I get is that they're two different beans. So the one you're looking for, the one that has this poisonous property, it would be the castor. I'm searching for the image here, so I'll show you. So this is supposedly the Calabar bean.
Okay.
But this is not I don't think this is it's because I'm very familiar with the other one,
Right.
with castor one. And I'll put it up
Sure.
as soon as I find it, because
Well,
all the windows here I get lost. So keep going.
yeah. Taboon, if that's soma, sarin, and E-serine, were first isolated from the calabar bean in the early 1840s. It's ricin that comes from castor, not sarin.
Okay.
The parent materials retain their botanical properties until the scientists learn how to synthesize everything from medicines to agricultural poisons. The laboratory game was then off and running, leaving dying and crippled soldiers. One at a time, the group of poisons rose like a miasma from the barrel of hydrocarbons, the so-called substitute for biodegradable botanicals.
So here, it says that it's also called castor bean.
Oh, okay.
This one is I'm very familiar with this plant. It grows here everywhere.
Yeah.
This is famous for having very powerful properties.
I grew it too when we first got here. It's supposed to be a deer deterrent.
Okay. Why would you want to deter deer? I'm wondering.
So they don't come into the garden and eat. You could make a living fence with castor.
Okay.
One class of hydrocarbons came to include paraoxin, also known as mitosol, that is employed as an active ingredient of parathion. And the next class includes parathion, an EPM that is a widely used insecticide, and malathion. Another class starts out as TEPP. This insecticide was used in treating glaucoma, Lou Gehrig's disease, Alzheimer's, and more. An insecticide called OMPA proved to be inactive in the test tube, but could be metabolized by plants and animals into potent anti-CHE agents. This means that when animals metabolize, the animal becomes a potent anti-CHE agent. I'm not sure what CHE is, but I'd have to look that up. That's what they were trying to do. When they push pills down the throats of GIs in Desert Storm, turn them into hybridostigmine agents.
Okay.
The problem is they did it with a synthetic product rather than the natural product of the calabar bean. The final group is styled ecothiophyte, an extremely potent choline derivative employed in the treatment of eye pressure. Except for a few witch doctors in Nigeria, the world of science embraced synthetics. If we read the Israeli text correctly, the physostigmines of the botanical world were amended and or shortchanged as modern Merlin subtracted hydrogen atoms from God's formula. All the products mentioned above, as well as a ponderous inventory, flowed from the original discovery. With human vision that thinks it's better than deity status, the alchemists created all kinds of monsters in Dante's hell as well. GIs who escaped the Holocaust were the ones who threw away the pyridostigmines that military experts figured would defend servicemen against chemical warfare. And instead, it gave them Gulf War syndrome.
Which I'm unfamiliar with. Can you tell me a little bit what it's about?
I should have looked that up. No, there's a whole lot of
or I can look
not side effects, health problems that come with it.
Okay.
I never took it seriously. I wasn't part of the Gulf War, so I just never researched it.
Yeah.
But I should have now that I know this.
Well, I got it here. If you want to check it out. Okay, here we go. And it says Gulf War syndrome, or chronic multi-symptom illness, is a chronic multi-symptomatic disorder affecting roughly 25 to 33% of Gulf War veterans. Symptoms include fatigue, chronic headaches, muscle joint pain, cognitive dysfunction, memory loss, concentration issues, insomnia, and gastrointestinal issues. This just seems like stress issues. But it says it's due to exposure to toxins, including sarin gas and cytotoluene bromide, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were exposed because they were forced to take it.
Oh, to take it? How?
Yes, they were forced to take it under threat of court-martial.
Like as a medicine, or how exactly?
Yeah, they were trying to turn them into agents that would be unreceptive to that wouldn't be affected by other chemical warfare.
Okay, like building their immunity, something like that.
Yeah,
Make them strong. Yeah, let's poison you so that you become resistant to poison. That's pretty screwed up. Okay.
So there is a perception afloat that botanicals that degrade are dangerous and that traceable chemistry forever clues the police. This misses the point that it would take a tractor-trailer load of botanicals to disturb a water main, which is the same thing. Let's make this simple. Botanicals would plant medicine. That's what botanicals are. So the wisdom afoot here is that tansy is poisonous to a wild plant named tansy is poisonous to your livestock, and so farmers have rooted it out. And I was told that when I planted it 3 years ago. Isn't it dangerous? Isn't it poisonous? No, it's 100% more effective than ivermectin. It's poisonous only if you take this one substance from the plant tansy and make it use only that substance. Because the entire plant protects against the poison from that one substance.
Okay.
So that's what it's saying. There's a perception afloat that botanicals that degrade or decay are dangerous, and that would put it in the soil, right? And that traceable chemistry will forever clue the police. But that's not true, because it would take a tractor trailer load of tansy to disrupt a water main, and even then it wouldn't hardly do anything because it's the entire plant. The only way it would disrupt is if you took an entire tractor load of that one poisonous compound. Right. So the opposite of that is a quart of synthetics would do maximum damage. And there's great profit. So the cash register has now rung, leaving behind soldiers with a disturbed mental nervous system and riddled with degenerative metabolic diseases. So far, no one has revealed by what stretch of the imagination scientists came to believe a pyridostigmine could confer immunity to chemical warfare. Sir Albert Howard said that that just turned my stomach, that our government literally poisoned soldiers.
Yeah.
Deliberately. So Sir Albert Howard said that modern agriculture was operating on two false premises: partial and imbalanced fertilization and toxic rescue chemistry. That anti-nature devices could produce bins and bushels became the supreme justification for this, though, this fossil fuel technology in the 1950s. That nature revolts against man's mistakes was less emphasized. Farmers were not ever told that plants without balanced hormone and enzyme systems summon the predators so that misfits can be removed. Then, to save the crop from the penalty of agriculture's original sin, an alchemy arrived on scene: the synthetic poisons. There have always been poisons in nature, frequently those associated with the elements of gravity, like lead and mercury. Every child who is allowed to read about Alice in Wonderland knows of the Mad Hatter's disease, the unhappy condition brought about when fumes from mercury used in the Hatter's trade attacked the central nervous system, splitting amino acids and creating proteins of a pathological nature. Farmers have used compounds of many natural poisons that kill quickly or slowly, and they lack the deadly potential of man's synthetic inventions. DDT was invented by a German chemist in 1874. Many of the miracle poisons of this can be found in some form in old German compendiums. At the end of World War I, many of the patents were handed to the world. And at the end of World War II, a doctor of Switzerland won the Nobel Prize for discovering the insecticidal properties of DDT. What is DDT? It is chlorinated hydrocarbons. And what are chlorinated hydrocarbons? Well, we got to return to Dmitri Mendeleev, who first constructed the table of known elements in natural order. All of the elements needed for life were listed as the first 53 of the 92 on planet Earth. Of these, all except one fell in order among the first 42, and all except two were listed among the first 34. So there's a natural order for abundance of elements on planet Earth according to atomic weight and number. The heaviest elements are the rarest, and a heavier element can displace a lighter one in the same group in biological tissues and alter the reaction of the lighter one. So then tissues with an affinity for a certain element have an affinity for all other elements of the same group. And some elements are bone seekers, some are thyroid seekers or liver and kidney seekers. And those few data only hint at the vast complexity of nature's life plan. So you would have to look at those. So chlorinated hydrocarbons are carbons that have had hydrogen attached to them and then chlorine.
Okay.
Which makes them very potent poisons. A landmark event was in 1828 when a scientist discovered that ammonium cyanate could be transformed into urea by heat alone. 30 years later, another scientist conceptualized methane as a basis for organic compounds. Here was a hypothesis that explained the structural formulas for all of the gas and oil compounds. However, benzene remained unexplained. Benzene had been isolated from oil and from coal tar, but why didn't it fit the hypothesis? Well, because it belongs to the hydrocarbons. And then a scientist was hanging out by his fire when he saw a vision in the smoke of his fire of carbon compounds playing like a cat and grabbing its own tail. Out of this came the benzene ring. In the chemical world, there are rings and chains and so many more shapes. A seemingly slight change in nature's formula can change the entire character then of the substance. Many changes via heat and cold and pressure and mixes have developed poisons of a fantastic scope. And it's in nature, and it's a fact that nature's poisons wash away while man's poisons threaten to consume him. Nature's poisons don't easily pass through the placental wall because they are governed by a principle known as homeostasis. Man-made poisons are not governed by this homeostasis principle, and the placental wall cannot stop DDT and the chlorinated hydrocarbons.
Okay.
These synthetic poisons build up in fatty tissues and overwhelm the system. They break the amino acid chain and cause mutations. And by offending the chromosomes, then these substances tamper with the gene pool. And that's why there were so many kids born with deformities from the DDT, because it crossed the placental wall. There is a connection between the moment and what benzene had to do with it. Is benzene in DDT? It must be. The book didn't say. What I was reading didn't tie the benzene with DDT very well. So there's a connection between the moment two B-29 bombers visit the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and most of the medicine practice today, as well as a leap forward in healing degenerative metabolic diseases. Radiation has been a disturbing scientific fact ever since Madame Curie found an ore giving up energy without destruction of its mass. All of a sudden, funds were available to study the genetic effects of radiation. The use of products of organic synthesis on the cornfields has delivered similar mutations and cancers as radiation, but the drive to ban them is short-winded, whereas the drive to ban radiation was long-winded. A science advisor to President Kennedy said using agricultural pesticides is more dangerous than atomic fallout. Today, every human creature comes in contact with poisonous chemical substances from the moment of conception till the moment of death. And a scientist in Italy concluded that it wasn't the structure of the chemicals alone that accounted for toxicity. He concluded that it's the ionization, the electrical activity also. The hydrogen atom is electrically neutral. It has a single electron. A violent impact then can knock the electron out of the atom, and this ionizes the atom and creates an ion pair. When atoms in human tissue are ionized, the tissue is damaged. Chemicals that are ionized to take up electrons are synthetic poisons that reach out and grab electrons from the hydrogen atoms of amino acids. So then the amino acid has been robbed of an electron and can't build a healthy protein, and a sick protein then can't build much of a cell. So sick and deranged cells are the authors of cancer, mental retardation, mutations, and more. Chemicals used in agriculture have been ionized to subtract electrons from the hydrogen atoms of amino acids. They work in the same way as thermoelectric and radiant energy from an atomic bomb. That's the biggest part of understanding this.
The chemicals we get bombarded with are worse than any atom bomb.
Yes. This is what the scientists in Italy discovered. So the damage caused by the ionization of atomic fallout and by chemical and physical agents is the same. He computed the damage being done to humans with the use of toxic genetic chemicals. The power of the H-bomb exploded at Bikini Island was 14 megatons. A total of 500 kilograms of uranium was used. I still have yet to understand why we would need to do that. The production of synthetic pesticides alone has increased from 730 million pounds in 1962 to 1,158 million pounds in 1972, and it's only gone up since then. And in addition, there are fungicides, herbicides, desiccants, rodenticides, and all manner of molecular combinations for which nature has never developed a suitable disposal system. And the scientists computed that 1,000 pounds of these genetic chemicals represent the same danger to people as an atomic fallout from 72,500 bombs of the size dropped on Bikini Island.
Yeah, wow.
In 1949, the government set up the Poison Control Center so that toxic rescue chemical agriculture could proceed. Let's say that again. God, that shocked the hell out of me. It was never set up for the benefit of humans. It was set up for anything other than to allow toxic chemical rescue agriculture to proceed.
The more we dig, the more we get to the big pile of shit they are.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The word was afloat that the chemicals were safe because the LD50 concept was correct. The LD50 concept means that at a specific dose per unit, the poisons will kill 50% of the test animals. This is an astounding concept in view of the fact that toxic genetic chemicals are radiomimetic, meaning they ape the character of radiation.
Wow.
Radiomimetic chemicals and radiation itself and almost all the chemicals used in agriculture can injure the chromosomes by altering the chemistry of a single gene so it conveys improper information. Simplistic NPK fertilization means malnutrition for plants, animals, and humans. Toxic rescue chemistry hopes to salvage a crop that is not fit to live so that the animals and humans might eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we love the psychology behind that?
Yeah.
In January 1998, a firm named after the Mountain of the Saints, Monsanto, became an institutional advertiser in the Washington Post. The firm decided that it had a new outlook on life, one that was done with the business of fighting nature, fungus, bacteria, and weeds with harsh chemicals that offended the environment and produced an end to the dreaded toxin, DDT,
Mm-hmm.
and a full range of toxic genetic pesticides. The ad did not point out that these same chemicals had built Monsanto.
Yeah.
Before the ad, Monsanto had announced that the future of plant protection was in the new science of genetic engineering. And that idea may or may not have been suggested by a battlefield incident during the Civil War. According to historians, a soldier was wounded in the gonads. The bullet continued 100 yards or so and was stopped when it wounded a young lady who became impregnated then. The story is that the missile carried sperm to fertilize the ova. And so the concept of inserting a foreign substance into a cell to breed new life at the molecular level awaited this discovery of DNA and RNA by Watson and Crick.
Mm-hmm.
The stupid story told by a young lady that got wounded by a bullet that had supposedly entered the gonad of a soldier, and she became pregnant from that bullet.
Oh, yeah.
Gave birth to
Miracles, huh?
Yeah.
The miracle of telling miraculous stories and
Yep.
people believe
Right.
in them.
I know, right? In our human life and our more than human life world, the transfer of genetic information occurs through natural reproductive mechanisms such as pollination or insemination. And this natural mechanism puts very strict constraints on what a breeder can accomplish. For instance, if you take the product of a donkey and a horse, which is a mule, that hybrid is not fertile. It can't make more mules.
Mm.
There occasionally a male is fertile, but a mule is fertile, but not very often.
Yeah.
So we run up against reproductive limitations, which means we can't screw up nature too much. With human directed genetic engineering, there really aren't any limitations. In the natural world, you could not get a tomato and a fish to mate. Yet, that presents quite a picture, doesn't it? Here, let's try to mate a fish with a tomato. Yet, in genetic engineering, you can take genetic info from a fish and put it into a tomato. The Chinese have developed a fish sugar beet. Mm-hmm. The fish blueprint came from a protein in the blood of the Arctic flounder. That protein functions like antifreeze, so the fish won't freeze in the cold water. The rationale was that if we put that blueprint into sugar beets, they will develop the same antifreeze protein and can be grown in colder climates with shorter growing seasons. Problem is that there is not a controlled process, so often unexpected effects occur, and the effects can cause the food that is produced to be allergenic or toxic and reduce its nutritional value. The Flavor Saver tomato was the first genetically engineered vegetable fruit that got put out. They engineered it so that it was supposed to stay looking fresh on the shelf longer. It turned out that those same genetic manipulations caused the skin of the tomato to be weaker. So when they started harvesting, the harvesting equipment made puree out of the tomatoes. See, so there is a limit.
Mm-hmm.
right? So that flavor saver tomato never, because of that, the tomato has been a financial flop because they would have to create a whole new gentle machinery to harvest that, and they're not guaranteed that they'd ever be able to harvest that tomato.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is the genetically engineered cotton that was sold to farmers across the South and Southwest. The cotton was engineered to be resistant to the bollworm. They got it into the field, and the bollworms ate the stuff like it was cotton candy.
Yeah.
Another example is the tryptophan that was produced by Showa Denko, a Japanese company. This company had been producing tryptophan as a nutritional supplement for many years using fermentation and natural bacteria. Tryptophan helps you sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Then they decided that by genetically engineering the bacteria, they could produce more tryptophan more effectively. And the FDA allowed them to put the genetically engineered tryptophan on the market without further testing. They argued that tryptophan is tryptophan. And yet within a few months, 1,500 people were disabled by it, and 7 of them were dead. The toxin that the genetically engineered bacteria produced was present in the tryptophan, and the genetic manipulation that caused the bacteria to produce more tryptophan also produced the powerful toxin. Since then, this tryptophan has disappeared off the shelves of health food stores. All tryptophan has, because of this. And there's still people dealing, 1,500 minus 7, dealing with the fallout from this.
Wow.
The big feed company called Pioneer Hybrid had the idea of genetically engineering soybeans to contain balanced amino acids, all the amino acids for complete nutrition, by taking the gene from a Brazil nut and putting it into the soybeans.
Mm-hmm.
They did produce a soybean with balanced amino acid composition. However, the manipulations caused the soybeans to produce a powerful allergen that caused damage in people, because a lot of people are highly allergic to Brazil nuts. Mm-hmm. So if it had gotten to market, it would have killed people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we stop. That's the end of tonight.
Okay. So it's so now we have a lot more information about all this that is going on, and this is what drives us into freedom, is actually daring to look at the things and listening to the facts and to the opinions, to the information, to the perspectives of and to the research that shows us that, well, the governments have never really been looking at us or for us or taking care of anyone except the corporate interest, and that's it. And there's, I was thinking today, where does this go? Because we are in a living planet, and this dystopian transhumanist fantasy sci-fi, it's only sci-fi. As much as they might want to push it, there's gonna be a time when it just won't continue anymore. It's not really viable. It's not even real. So it's just, how long can they keep us in the illusion? That's all they have, and it's a ticking clock.
Yeah, it is. It's a train that will derail itself. It can only go so far. It really will.
So this is all the information. Well, not all the information, but here you will find, folks, the information that is going to kind of help you find your way between. And I invite you to check out all the other subjects, because we touch on very, very different things. And I know that some people like some things, some people like the other things. And to that, we have to say that we have to be able to really open up to a full, a complete, a holistic transformation, a holistic life, where we don't just we're not just finding information that agrees with our pre-established worldview, but we are open to having a new worldview. That's what we need
Yeah.
to have that openness. And if we don't have that openness, then everything's going to stay the same. It all depends on us, because guess what? It's only us that are here.
Yeah.
It's we that are here, and it's we that we get to choose where do we want to go. That's the reading that we get from today's Ukup or Ukip Hpude, the 7-flower day, which is where do we get to choose, even if it's, I mean, we get to choose. It might not be an easy choice, might not be an easy path, a short path, but we still get to choose.
Yeah.
And look at that beautiful kitten.
So
do we know where we're going to go next on the next week's conversation?
We're going to talk about returning to our original selves and regaining our original strength.
Wow, kind of what the Hpu reading is for today. That's great. Okay, so returning to ourselves and to our original strength, is that going to give us some tips, or is there going to be what kind of things do you cover?
We're going to talk about moving our bodies.
The body, and how important and how connected that is. So when we move our bodies, it's not only our muscles and bones that are getting treated, it's also our psyche, and also then the cosmos. It's moving. When we move, the cosmos moves.
Absolutely. So we're gonna talk about crawling and rolling and rocking, all the movements we did as babies that we abandoned.
That we have abandoned. I do that, and I've been wanting to kind of record that stuff and kind of share it, and I just don't have the time for that. But that's great that you're bringing that up, and so that we can have we haven't seen that yet in all these 218 sessions. So it's really amazing that.
Well, we talked about natural movement, but this a French guy, Erwan Delacour, started natural movement, where he trains you to crawl, and there's one class on his website where you start, where the guy has you saying, this is you're on your belly. Your mother just put you on your belly or on your back as a baby, and you see something in the distance. Now how are you going to roll? So he teaches rolling. But this new guy takes it to a whole different depth of, so Erwan Delacour, they teach rolling and they teach crawling, and and I was very inspired. I started with them, but I didn't want to be tied to my computer to do this. I wanted to be able to go outside and do it. And their website wasn't ready for tablet. So that ended that. But this new source I found this source from a YouTube video where I'm watching this guy who's a bodybuilder, and he doesn't have the huge, bulky, body of a bodybuilder, and he showed pictures of himself before as he was a bodybuilder, being able to lift deadlift 300 pounds or something like that, right? However much they lift. He had that bulky, big, ape-like, gorilla-like body, and then he discovered crawling. And he crawls around like he's a freaking spider, and his whole body habitus changed. I can't remember. I should have sent you the movie. And he mentioned this author that I picked up, and this author talks about, brings it back to the 5 movements, Setai, right? And back to the nervous system. Erwan Delacour never talked about that kind of stuff. So this is why we're going back into it, because now we can tie it back to our nervous system, and we've already talked about how important the nerves are in predictions, and now we're going to even get into skin.
Wow.
because rolling is the most luxurious thing you can do for skin, which is where Adam Tokunaga with his slow sex comes from, is the importance of touch, the importance of activating, arousing the skin. And rolling is one way to do that. Rolling like a baby.
Wow. Okay, so that's going to be for next week. It's going to be very exciting. And you want to join us at the same 7:15, maybe?
Well, yeah, we'll see. I'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll keep it at the same time for now because I was done with feeding tonight by 6:15. So I still have a 15-minute leeway before I need to change.
Okay, so 7 o'clock next week. Join us, and thank you for being here. Please leave some kind of sign that you are a human and not a bot, please. Love you all, and waterfalls of blessings, and see you next week.